One of the most comforting foods to me is pho, Vietnamese noodle soup with fresh herbs and sprouts and lime, a rich, deep broth. It's just the pure definition of comfort to me. I've never made it myself. There's several places here in town where I can get some when I'm really feeling the need for it. Today, we're going to try to make some here in the kitchen. I think the key to a good pho is the broth. It's got just a deep, rich flavor that carries the entire soup. It seems like it's cooked for hours or days. We're going to try to make it in just a few minutes using the Instant Pot. We'll see how that goes. It's coming from this book, the Vegan Instant Pot Cookbook. This book was recently recommended to me by a friend here in town. She's a scientist, a food writer herself, and she had nothing but praise for this book and its author. As anyone who's watched my channel knows, I'm pretty much an omnivore. Will eat anything. I'm no stranger to vegan cooking, but this is not my ordinary fare. The picture looks very appetizing, and there's quite a few ingredients, but it's mostly spices and herbs and vegetables. Very easy preparation, I think, once we get past the chopping and the smashing and so forth. It cooks very quickly, about 15 minutes in the Instant Pot, plus a little bit of rest time. I'm very intrigued by the simplicity and the speed. I've already made one recipe from this book, a vegan queso, and it was one of the best quesos, period, that I've ever had. And it's something that I'm going to be making often here in my kitchen. It's just tremendous. I'll probably do a short video on that one of these days. But vegan pho, let's give it a go. I've got my trusty Instant Pot out. I love this thing. It's so versatile. One of the most versatile appliances that I've ever used in the kitchen. First thing we're going to do is prepare the noodles and get the vegetables out. We're going to use rice noodles in our pho. So not only is this vegan, but it's also gluten-free. Rice noodles are super easy to come by these days. Pretty much any supermarket will have them in the Asian section. They're used in not just pho, but pad thai and lots of other Asian noodle dishes. The recipe says you can use pretty much any kind of rice noodle. They come in various thicknesses, from wide noodles down to little thin strands like vermicelli, or rice sticks. These are round, kind of like a spaghetti. I did go to a specialty Asian store here in town just to kind of see what they had, and they had an entire shelf full of dozens of kinds of rice noodles. I just picked one kind of at random. You don't necessarily need to cook them. All you have to do is just soak them in hot or warm water, set them off to the side for 45 minutes or so, and then they'll be ready to eat when everything else comes together. There are quite a few ingredients for our broth, which makes sense since it's the foundation of the soup. Everything here should be pretty easy to find, so let's go through them. A little bit of oil, 2 yellow onions, a Fuji apple, a 4-inch piece of ginger, shiitake mushrooms, fresh cilantro, some low sodium soy sauce, some pre-made vegetable broth. We're going to use 8 cups of broth total, but she does say that up to half of that could just be water. And then our spices. Salt, of course, some black peppercorns. I've got a mix. I didn't bother picking out just the black, so there's some white and red and a few Szechuan peppercorns in there as well. I think that should be fine. 4 whole cloves, 3 star anise pods. I love how these things look. Whole fennel seeds, whole coriander seeds, 3 cardamom pods, a cinnamon stick, and the most difficult ingredient for me to find was coconut sugar. It was at the Asian grocery store. It comes in little pucks, and I just grated off the 1 tablespoon that we're going to use for this recipe. I'm sure in a pinch I could just use raw sugar, raw cane sugar. It wouldn't have quite the same flavor, but I think it would be just fine. There's a little bit of prep we're going to do. I'll walk you through that, and then it's all just going to go into the Instant Pot. The first thing we need to do is brown the onions and ginger and some of the spices. So I've got the Instant Pot turned on, set to saute. It's been heating up for a few minutes. And we'll put in a couple teaspoons of oil. You want a neutral oil, something that can take some high heat. And then we've got our onion halves. We'll put them cut side down. And then the ginger slices right on top of that. And we'll just let these sit. I'm not going to stir them, not going to mess them around. We just want them to sit in the hot oil and caramelize on the bottoms. That'll build some of that nice deep flavor that we're looking for. So we'll check on it about 5 minutes. It's a nice good color. It's really aromatic already, and it's about to get even more so because we're going to toast the spices in there as well. Peppercorns, cloves, star anise, the crushed cardamom pods, whole fennel seeds, and the whole coriander. We'll stir those around. They'll toast for about a minute. After a minute, we'll add the apple and the fresh cilantro, the mushroom slices, and that smells fantastic. Coconut sugar, 2 tablespoons of light soy sauce, and then our 8 cups of broth. Give it all a stir. The lid goes on. I'm going to hit cancel, take it off saute, and put it on pressure cook. High pressure for 15 minutes. After that, we'll turn it off, let it sit for 10 minutes, and slowly over those 10 minutes, it'll release some of the pressure. And then we'll open up the valve and let it go the rest of the way. And that's really it. That's all the cooking we're going to do. There's a little bit of preparation of toppings, not much, but really this was the bulk of it. Now we can take the lid off. I realized after it came to pressure that I forgot to put in the cinnamon stick. We're not going to get the full flavor, but I still need to bring out all of the toppings we're going to have for our soup and show those to you. So while I'm doing that, I'm just going to drop this in and let it steep so that we can at least get some of the flavors in there, even if not the full benefit of the cinnamon stick. Let's see how this is. Oh, wow. So you can see our half onions have gotten very soft. They're just falling apart. All of the apples have turned to mush. The mushrooms still have their shape, but they've released a lot of their flavors. We're going to be straining all of this. It's only the broth that we're after. So it was okay that we put these big chunks of onions and whole spices and so forth. I'm just going to drop in the cinnamon stick. Bon voyage. And we'll move this aside. I'll just let it sit on the counter behind me there and get out all of the toppings. Now, of course, the broth is key to a good pho. But once you have the broth, it's still not pho without a nice array of toppings. And this particular recipe suggests this selection. We've got some green onions, some bean sprouts, some fresh cilantro, limes, hot peppers, baked tofu. This was difficult for me to find. She suggests that you use a 5-spice flavor. I did not have a choice of flavors. So I just got this baked tofu. I'm sure it'll be just fine. And then finally, Thai basil. What we're going to do is just slice up the green onions just into chunks on the diagonal. We'll cube the tofu, cut the limes into wedges so that we can spray the juice into the soup. And then for the herbs, it's very important that we do not chop them. We want to be rough with them, just tear them directly into the bowl so that they release the maximum amount of oils and flavors. So at the restaurants, they'll give you just whole sprigs like this and leave it to you to tear off the leaves and crush them into your bowl. So there's our nice plate of toppings, and it's time to strain our broth and serve it up. We want to strain this using a fine sieve, and I'm using this straining bag that I have. I use it for making nut milks and really all kinds of things. Anytime I need to strain a big batch of something, this is perfect. I've got a spare pot for the Instant Pot. It's not uncommon for us to do like a stew in one and then rice in the other, right back to back. So I know that everything's going to fit in here. You can see that deep dark color that the broth has taken, partly because we charred those onions there at the beginning, and just from all of the mushrooms and the other things that are in there. All right, let's get these solids out of the way. She says to put in a teaspoon of salt and then taste it and see if we need more. All right, I'm looking forward to this taste. I love pho broth, and it's hard to imagine that 15 minutes of cooking is going to result in the same flavor. Let's see. Okay, that's impressive. It is a little different. I usually get a mixed meat pho. I can tell that that's not in here, but I'm not necessarily missing it, if that makes sense. The flavors are a little different, but the spices are coming through. They're not being muddied by any of the meat flavors or anything like that. It's very bright. That's quite good. I've got the rice noodles inside. They're nice and tender. They've been sitting in the hot water this whole time, so they are done. And we'll ladle over some broth. Look how rich and dark that is. And now our toppings. And they'll usually serve them to you on a plate, and you can just scoop them right in, just like this. So we've got our tofu, our hot peppers, green onion, the bean sprouts, which I forgot to show you earlier on the plate, but I added them to it. Now the herbs, as I said, get just ripped and smashed. So I'll just tear them off the stems. And then just sort of wad them up and rip them apart. And their smell is just flooding the kitchen just from this little bit. And then the same with the cilantro. Wow. And then finally some lime right over the top. Fantastic. And there we go. Let me take some glamour shots and then we'll give it a taste. All right, let's just get in there and enjoy it. The noodles I chose are thick, like a thick spaghetti. They're not the little thin vermicellis or anything you might typically find. And I like that. They're a bit chewy, still tender, but just a bit more bite to them. So more substantial. The broth, though. I want to say it's not as earthy, maybe as deep as some of the broths that I've had. It's a lot brighter flavor. Maybe part of that is that fresh lime that I just squeezed over. I'm getting that's strong. I'm getting that over the top. But the herbs and the spices that are in there are kind of a brighter flavor. There's the earthiness, of course, from the soy and the mushrooms especially, and the caramelization that we got with the onions there at the beginning. And the sliced chili peppers have the heat going down. Yeah. For my first ever time making pho at home, I can't complain about anything. It's superb. I didn't have to mess with, weird meatballs or tendons or any of those things that you find in a traditional meat-based pho. Super easy, nice, fresh ingredients, all coming together quickly thanks to the Instant Pot. It's good. It's good. Well, thanks for trying out the Vegan Instant Pot with me. It's a winner. I've made 2 recipes. One was just a league of its own. The queso recipe that's in there is tremendous, and I'll do that in a separate short video. It's very quick. This one also a winner, and I'm definitely going to be going through this book and trying more. Not necessarily all on camera, but there's some nice looking things in here I'm looking forward to trying. Thanks for coming along on this adventure, and I look forward to seeing you next time. I'd love to hear what your experiences are with pho. Do you like the idea of a vegan pho? Have you had that before? If you have any other suggestions, I'd love to hear those too. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time on the Random Recipe Project.